Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Monster. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He did not receive much attention as a child as his father was busy with university studies and his mother did not properly pay attention to him. When his father was home, his parents were often found arguing. He found a large fascination with dead animals and would often go around looking for dead animals under his house and dissect them. He moved around a lot, numbering at 6 times during his parents' marriage. One time he decapitated the body of a dog, nailed it to a tree, and stuck the skull on a stick in the area behind his house and pranked his friends by showing them, claiming he found it by chance. By the age of 14, he had a drinking problem and was often found drinking in daylight. When confronted about it, he stated it was his medicine. Although largely uncommunicative, he was seen as polite and largely intelligent but got average grades. He was a tennis player and even joined the high school band briefly. When he hit puberty, he discovered he was gay but did not tell his family and had a brief relationship with another teenage boy, but it led to nothing. He later admits he began fantasizing about completely dominating and controlling submissive males. He was a class clown and would often bleat and imitate a seizure, which would become known as doing a Dahmer. His parents would divorce after finding out about his mother's affair. His father moved out, and shortly after, his mother left with his brother David. Dahmer just graduated and stayed in the family home. Shortly after graduating, he picked up hitchhiker Stephen Hicks and committed his first murder. He would later enroll at Ohio State University hoping to get a major in business, but ultimately failed due to his drinking problem. He enlisted in the military due to his father's urging, but was let off with honorable discharge due to his drinking problem. His superiors did not believe these problems Dahmer had would be applicable to civilian life. He eventually moved in with his grandmother, who was the only person whom he had displayed any affection for. He went to church, did the chores, and actively sought work, but lost his job and committed many crimes thereafter. He often visited gay bathhouses, but was angry by his partners moving during the act and would often drug them instead. To get a supply of sleeping pills, Dahmer informed doctors he worked night shifts and often needed pills to adjust his body to work unsociable hours. After his bathhouse membership was revoked, he learned about the funeral of an 18-year-old male to which he would attempt to dig up, but to no success. Dahmer had little interaction with his wife and less so his mother. His father was always at work and his mother was a wreck. She attempted suicide on at least one occasion and neither parent devoted much time to their son. When his father discovered their affair, both decided to divorce. His mother took custody over the younger son and received alimony payments. His father taught him to preserve animal bones to his curiosity, but it spurred on his attraction of bodies. He was gay, but never told anyone else about it. He fantasized about a jogger when he was 16 and even attempted to ambush him with a bat in a bush. Although he had already killed someone, it didn't start happening until his second victim, which he had killed in a drunken stupor to which he found adrenaline in. Dahmer did not only commit murders, he was also charged for drunken disorderly conduct for drinking in public, indecent exposure, revealing himself to 25 people including women and children, lewd and less vicious behavior where he masturbated in front of two 12-year-old boys. Although he claimed to be urinating, he later admitted to the offense. Second-degree sexual assault for drugging and fondling a 13-year-old boy who he learned on the pretext of posing for nude photographs. This boy was the older brother of Konorak Synthasmophone, one of his 15 murder victims. In all of Dahmer's murders, he would always take them back to his home under the pretense of having a good time. He would even lure and murder 4 people in his grandmother's house, unbeknownst to her. He would always knock them out, mostly with sedatives, and would strangle them afterwards. The only exception were his first victim, whom he bludgeoned, second whom he battered to death, and another who he died of shock and blood loss. After he enjoyed his victims, he would try to preserve their bodies and bones and eventually break them down in an acid and hide the evidence. Later, he would even go on to cannibalize the corpses to make them a part of him. He compared the bodies to a filet mignon. Although 9 of his victims were black, he claims that they were not racially motivated and were purely chosen for their body type. He would also often watch The Exorcist 3 to get him in the mood for the murders. Stephen Hicks was Dahmer's first victim, killed in 1978, and was an entirely unplanned killing. His next murder would not happen until 9 years later. One especially significant victim was Konorak Synthasmophone, the younger brother of the 13-year-old from before. He took him to his home and drilled and poured hydrochloric acid into his skull to create a body that wouldn't protest or decay. He left the boy in his apartment to buy beer, but Konorak escaped to the street, naked and dazed. 3 women were concerned and called the police for help. Dahmer managed to trick them into thinking the 14-year-old boy was 19 and they were lovers because Conrad could not speak English. Despite the women's protests and the boys' injuries, the officer threatened them with arrest and told them to shut the hell up. This was very significant because the women were African American and the kid was of Asian descent, and some claimed that the police officers were racist and homophobic. His final murder attempt was on 32-year-old Tracy Edwards. He lured him into his house to pose for nude photos in exchange for $100. He got out a knife and threatened to kill him many times. After talking for about 5 hours, he found a chance to escape. He ran to two police officers in the street and led them to Dahmer's apartment. They discovered Polaroids of dismembered humans and arrested Dahmer on site. Further investigating showed that in the apartment was 74 Polaroids of dismembered bodies, 4 severed heads, 7 skulls, 2 hearts, a portion of arm muscle, an entire torso, a bag of human organs, 2 entire skeletons, a pair of severed hands, 2 severed penises, a mummified scalp, and 3 torsos dissolving in an acid solution. No food was found in his fridge, only human meat. It's later revealed he ate the bodies of his victims. His trial began on January 30th, 1992 for the murder of 15 different people. He already pled guilty, but the defense was trying to argue he had mental defects and was insane when he did the murders. Final witness for prosecution, forensic psychiatrist Park Dietz, testified he did not believe Dahmer had any form of mental defect at the time he committed the crimes. Stated, Dahmer went to great lengths to be alone with his victim and had no witnesses. He explained that there was ample evidence that Dahmer prepared in advance for each murder, therefore his crimes were not committed impulsively. He talked about Dahmer's habit of becoming intoxicated prior to committing each of the murders with significance, stating, if he had an impulse to kill or a compulsion to kill, he wouldn't have to drink alcohol to overcome it. He only has to drink alcohol to overcome it because he is inhibited against killing. Dietz diagnosed Dahmer with substance use disorder, paraphilia, and schizotypal personality disorder. The verdict? Dahmer was not sane or suffered a mental disorder and was sentenced to 15 life sentences. Jeffrey Dahmer is currently not alive and died November 28, 1994. He was killed by his fellow inmate Christopher Scarver because he was revolted by his actions, even though he was also another murderer. The reaction of the public was mixed, as Dahmer's death was still another murder. His father still loved Dahmer, however, and wrote a book about him and donated all the profits to the victims' families. His mother died of cancer of November 2000, and his brother changed his surname and lives in anonymity. Is he a psychopath or a sociopath? He shows signs of both. However, I believe Jeffrey Dahmer leans more towards psychopath because he shows a lack of empathy from a young age, appeared as polite and intelligent, was a loner, but was also a class clown around the school, faked being nice to people to lure them to a secluded location. All kills were planned except the first, and he always got rid of all evidence of the body. And these are my citations, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.